Hello and welcome. This is Aaron, and here will be a tutorial on creating and modifying and maintaining shapefiles. To show you guys how to build and modify shapefiles, I'm going to be doing an example of drawing the precincts in Missoula County, Montana. And then I'm going to use the precinct outlines according to the New York Times 2016 map, and based on those lines we'll draw the precincts. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to pull up QGIS, and so what I'm going to show you is how to take an image. So what I did is I took a screenshot. I zoomed in to get this downtown Missoula. I was going to show you based on these kind of color changes, drawing based on a screenshot. This is useful, especially if you have, if you're going off of a specific map, then you can take that map, and it's called georeferencing, where you bring it into QGIS as a map, match it to the background latitude and longitude coordinate system, and then you can draw onto it, and it'll become a shapefile in the real world. So what you're first going to have to do is install a plugin. And so you come up here to plugins, manage and install plugins. It takes some time to open it. You can just search for georeferencer. With this georeferencer GDL, make sure it's checked on. So then you go to raster here, georeferencer. And this will open up your georeferencer window. Make sure you have your georeferencer as a separate window, separate from your desktop or window as QGIS. Sometimes it'll open up as a second tab because there is an issue, a bug in QGIS. It causes QGIS to crash when it's in that as a tab instead of as a separate window. So make sure you do that. So what we're going to do here is we click on this top left button here, which brings up our directory. And then we can go, I have it in screenshots. So there we go, brought up the map. And so this is the map that we're going to outline. And so we're going to follow these where the shading is. Oops. And so what we need to do then is set our settings. So because of the fact that we're zoomed in and it's over a smaller area, I'm going to use the polynomial 1. And so the polynomials do a global kind of transformation. If you want something that's very local, use the thin plate spline. So I'm going to choose the polynomial 1. Then for our target, we're going to use the project coordinate reference system. And then you can set where the modified image is. To me, that doesn't really matter. We'll have it save the points. All right, and now let's get drawing. So for here, we're going to use these 3 buttons up here. So this is add point, delete point, move point. Now before we add these points to our canvas, connect them to to QGIS, we have to figure out what this is referring to. And so one of the things that I've done, which I recommend you do, is you can link QGIS to Google Maps. And so it comes out here in the XYZ tiles, where you can get the various maps. And so that way you can see the real world in QGIS without having to rely on shapefiles explicitly. So what you're going to do is I just say adding Google Maps to QGIS. And it's one of the first ones here, visits multiple times for showing things. And what you do is you have to copy these URLs. So what we're going to do is if you say new connection, and then you can title it whatever you want, Google Map, and then you put it, copy and paste the URL. Into here, and then you just say, okay, and then boom, there it is. I'll delete it because I already have it. Yes, delete the connection. But when you open it up, it'll bring up Google Maps. And so what we're going to do is we got to zoom in here into Missoula, showing the city here. And so then we can see the background roads that are the same here. So we're going to pick 3 points that are roughly equally spaced around the map. So we'll do one over here. Maybe we'll do this one here, this intersection of these major roads. We'll do one up here, one of the intersections up here, and then we'll do one of the intersections down here. So let's do this one first. So we have these two streets here. Let's see. South Avenue and Reserve Street right here. So we are going to make sure we add new point from the map canvas and click here and hit OK. And so now there's a red dot here and a red dot here. It says, all right, that tells QGIS that point on this image and this point in QGIS, they correspond to the same location. Now let's do another one. Let's go up here. Maybe where Greeno Drive crosses this highway. There we go. So right about here. So we just click here from map canvas, click here, and hit OK. All right, so now we need our third point. Maybe we'll come down here. So now we have our 3 points spread throughout the image, and so we'll hit start georeferencing, and so that brings it in here, and you can see the map was transformed here, and so we can look here and see how when you take off the layer, it basically perfectly matches the underlying map. So now that we have our image georeferenced to QGIS, we can start building the shapefile. So what we're going to do is go to Layer, say Create Layer, New Shapefile Layer. We're going to specify that we want a polygon, and we're going to specify that we want the project CRS. We're going to give it a name. Now make sure you don't just put something in this text box here. You have to click this button on the right and create the full path to your file. So we'll call this Montana Precincts. So you can see the full path here, and we're going to add some fields. So we'll call it. So we already have an ID field. We'll put a county field in. We don't need to have it 80. Let's do 30. We'll say add to fields list. There we go. So hit OK, and now it shows up here. So we're going to click this button here, this yellow pencil, to start editing, and then we'll call this is the add polygon feature. Click on that, and now we have this kind of compass bullseye cursor, which allows us to pick where we want to draw things. So we're going to start here, click here, and then up to here. And as we go around, this one's pretty simple. It's just kind of connecting the dots. If we're done, you right click. It brings up a dialog box where you can put in the field values. So precinct 1 in Missoula County. So hit OK. And then there it is. Now let's do the second one. So there's precinct number 2 in Missoula. All right. So now we have seemingly a bit of an issue. We have a gap here. How are we supposed to draw precincts that don't have this gap here? Because when we want to combine the precincts, those gaps will persist and there'll be holes. So while this whole add polygon feature is a great tool, I find that it's not the best practice for drawing precinct boundaries. For me, the best way to do this is you use the polygon tool. So we use this big kind of canvas thing, and what we're going to do is we're going to split this feature. And so what you do here is under Edit, there's all these different options that you can use to edit. So we're going to use Split Features. Now before we do that, we want to see what's happening underneath. And so one great way to do that is to set the opacity to be 50%. So that way you can still see the outline, but then you can see what's happening underneath. So we'll go to Edit, Split Features. Now for split features, you have to go from one side to another. So like, let's do this light gray precinct because it's on this outside here. So we'll start on the outside like that, and then we come outside, and you can see that it's going to split it into two. You right click, and now we have two. We have this one, and we have this one. So now all we have to do is take this and split it using our split tool. The unfortunate thing about the split tool though is it means you can't use the vertex editor, because if you use the vertex editor and you add a vertex or move vertexes around, it only controls one of them, and so you'll induce gaps in between, which you don't want. So when you make mistakes, you have to kind of go through a bit of a complicated process. So I'll show that right now. So let's say you doing your split features here, and we made a little bit of a mistake here. Instead of using the vertex editor here where you can move the points around to where they need to be, you have to use your split feature. So we'll go split feature, go back to here where the mistake started, then we'll come back here, and so we create the second shape, and now we'll merge the two features. We'll use the highlight tool, highlight both of them here, and go edit, where is it? Merge selected features. So then you hit OK, and it combines them together. However, you can see that this doesn't always work perfectly. And so this is where you have to use the vertex editor. For some reason, when you do split features, sometimes it approximates incorrectly. So just highlight over the problematic one, delete, boom, there it goes away. And then you can see here, because of where the connection was, we can just delete these two to make sure keep it straight. So I've spent some time finishing up the precincts in our Mozilla. As you can see, I've decided to go beyond the initial region that I set, trying to add a good number of precincts outside. So because I was going outside the boundaries using the vertex editor, and I wanted the boundaries to be exact. And so I added these kind of overlapping regions, so that way I could figure out, I can use the union to kind of get rid of them and then combine them with whichever precinct they're supposed to be in, and that'll leave me with exact boundaries. And just to kind of show you why I want to do that, here on this side, it's kind of hard to see. If I zoom, see how you can see this gap here. Try to show if you try to do it by hand, right, you'll always be inexact. And so you can kind of see this one looks pretty good, but as you zoom in, you'll see that there's a little overlap and a little gap there. So I'm going to show you now how to deal with those issues, how to deal with overlaps and gaps in your shapefile. This is the kind of the fixing stage. So what I've done, what has happened here has been kind of self-inflicted, but there are other times if you're using shapefiles from different places, they might not align perfectly, or if you're doing splits or things, as you're working through this, it's likely that you're going to encounter these gaps and overlaps, even if it's not as intentional and as obvious as it is here. But I felt like this would be a great way to show those gaps and those overlaps and how to resolve them. So the first thing that we're going to do here is we're going to do the union of this with itself, and that'll get rid of all of the overlaps. So we're going to go here to Vector, Geoprocessing, Union, choose Union, and we're going to say nothing else. We'll hit Run. We'll turn that off, turn this off, and then that gives us, so that means there are no overlaps here. So now, using our features here, we can combine them. So this one will combine, and now we're going to do so it looks like all of them are done. So to check that we've done all of them, we're going to come up here to our open attribute table. So what you'd want to do is go through using the attribute table. You should have go through and make sure you have individual numbers, ID numbers, or string IDs to label each one of the shapes. And then you can go through each of the shapes and check to see that it's in the right spot. Kind of showing what things should look like. So I know that over here, let's see, over here, there's supposed to be an overlap there. And so you can see how, while I really, like, it looks like I only have 2 shapes highlighted, I in fact have 4. So we can click on each of them, so you can see, oh, this one is actually where that gap is. And so if I zoom in far enough, now, one of the issues, and I have another video that talks about this, is that when you do the union with itself, all the overlaps are doubled up. And so this one, even when you zoom in, it doesn't seem to be there, but if I delete it, there's still one on the other side. So I'm gonna go through and delete and combine all of the proper ones so that every single one of these in this list refers to one of these visible shapes here. All right, so I've gone through and I've combined all of the kind of extraneous bits such that there are 23 of these recognizable shapes, and there are also 23 in here, so everything's combined. Now, the next step is to get rid of the gaps. Now this one takes a little bit more work. There's not really a direct thing that you can do that finds the gaps. What you have to do is you have to create a separate temporary scratch layer. You have to create a separate temporary scratch layer, which I'm just gonna call over, because that's kind of what it does. It'll just remind me of what it is. And we have to make sure, this is very, very important, that the CRS, that the projection is exactly the same as the projection that is our map, and it has to be exactly the same as the projection that our layer is in. So make sure that all 3 of these are exactly the same. So we're in 3857 here, and as you saw, they're all the same. This is super important. Now, what you're going to do is you're going to create one polygon that surrounds the whole thing, like so. We're going to save it. So we're going to take the difference. So we're going to go here to difference, and we're going to say over minus union. So this part is it's the input, subtract the overlay. And so what that's going to do is it's going to say, take all the parts where the overlay is and take them out, make them as holes within this input layer. And so when we do that, what we're going to get here is everything where that isn't. So all of these kind of internal bits here, those are where there were gaps. Right now, this whole thing, this difference is one shape. As you see the red dots here, it's all connected. So what we're going to do is separate this. This is right now a multi-part polygon. So we're going to go to geometry and go to multi-part to single parts. And we're going to choose difference, run, turn that off, highlight this. And so when you click on one, it only clicks on, or only chooses the one. And now that we have that, we're going to delete this outside one because that's completely frivolous. And then we're going to take another union, this time the union between union and single parts, and that combines them all together. And so now what we can do here, and this part is actually fairly easy, we can look at our single parts here to see where we're doing our combinations. Let's do this one first. You can see that it's, if we put this over top here, it's right in here. You can see how this line is a little bit darker. So we can highlight both of these, leave the one that we want to keep it in, and then hit merge. And that combines them together. All right, so I've gone through and I combined all of these the single parts that were shown to be gaps with the larger precinct file. And so there's a couple of ways that you can check to make sure that you've done it all correctly. You can go back and do the difference again just to see if you've missed any gaps. You can do the union again to see if there are any extra overlaps. But the way that's like really satisfying to me is if you kind of highlight all of them and you merge them together, you get no holes, no weird bits going on. Just, it's very, very clean. And that's easy to undo because you can just hit undo. But just a nice kind of feeling to know that you've done it all correctly. If you ever are trying to do an operation and QGIS tells you that it's invalid, it can't do it because of some error in the geometry, a great way to check that your polygon or your shapefile is valid is to go Vector, Geometry Tools, check Validity, and you choose the one you want. I usually do the QGIS method, just make sure it's working. When you run, it outputs 3 files, and here you can see that we actually have some errors. And so this gray part, those are the valid shapes, and these red parts are the invalid shapes, with these 2 dots here showing us where the invalid points are. And so a lot of times what comes up is that there's an issue with self-intersections. And so if I turn off these and I go to vertex editor and I right click, then you can see this green X here, and that shows that there is a self-intersection going on. So here you can see what's going on is that this part comes out here, and we obviously don't want that. So we're going to delete this, and boom, there it goes away. So we don't want it to come out here. We want it the vertex to be there. So that solves that one. And there's one over here for both of them. Yeah, this is you just kind of have to see what's going on. Yeah, so you can see how this is a start and end point, but we can only have the 2. So we'll delete 1 here. And then let's see on this side. So again, there's 2 here, so we'll delete 1. Save it. And so then we can recheck now. Check validity on the union. And boom, it's all valid. All right, that's it. That's how to create and modify your own shapefiles in QGIS. Thank you for watching. Please don't hesitate to raise a question, post a comment, or bring up a concern you have either in the comments here on this video or at my Twitter account. Thank you, and I hope to see you all later.